So good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to another scene for the living world of darkness, rage across New York, where there has been a battle, a really big fucking battle. A battle so big it took 3 scenes to portray all 3 fronts, I suppose we should say. And where we are settling is on something of a center point, a place where a number of arca-torches have burned themselves out, set in a wide circle, where the Thayrges had their own battle to fight against the major Bane who was causing this whole hole to grow the way it did. And whatever else may be happening as various packs come together, as all look in on their friends and family, as all go to aid their extended family in retrieving and mourning the dead, in bringing them back, in fetching chimnages that have been promised. The only person who's probably very still at this point in that center area of the field is going to be 10 Point, who is still kind of crumpled where she fell in the wake of the trial she faced, and surrounded by the shards of her violin. And it won't be until these others verge closer to that center point that she does much more than sit there and leak tears in a bit of a huddle. Though as her packmates come nearer, the big ears twitch, her muzzle turns, and she'll finally kind of numbly climb out of the remains of her most treasured belonging and start numbly ambling in their direction. Physically hale and whole, but otherwise, at least internally, and probably very palpably through the pack link, just kind of emotionally broken and bleeding.
Yeah, the first probably one she sees at the head is Aiden, limping and having a body in his arms that she would recognize, I'm assuming, as Chad. She can see blood is still streaking down his back. He looks bruised, battered, very much alive, but he looks like he's been through hell. You know, the bits of woe flecked with blood, and, you know, as he's kind of hobbling along.
Saoirse is walking beside him, just behind him, like not like right behind him, but just staggered back just a little bit, keeping a little distance, but close enough that he knows that she's there. And she's very somber, and she's holding her chest because she's in a bit of pain, and just, yeah. But her primary concern right now is Aiden, and because she knows how close he and Chad were. So, of course, she's sad because, you know, he was their tribe mate. Yeah.
And ambling along behind with the aid of her cousin Leia, Dallas is making her way down the hill a few paces behind Saoirse, making sure that every one of her war party is ahead of her, the Von Evericks, who kind of go off in their own direction, and the Fangs and Fenrir. Dallas's chainmail is completely split and hewn in the front, and there is a massive amount of damage all the way up the center of her chest that still burns and sizzles.
For 10 points reference, that is what Aiden's back looks like. Except just imagine it bloody as all shit. Sadistic looking.
Saoirse's not quite as damaged as the rest, but she's still the chest of her armor and stuff is ripped open, and there's a gash along it that has shards of silver in it. And she's kind of clutching, but trying not to touch it because it does hurt, but yeah.
Yeah, for at least 2 of the oncoming. There was a brief period where 10 Point kind of, oddly enough, kind of winked out of the pack link. There wasn't the death throes, there wasn't pain. She just kind of disappeared very briefly. Though upon her return has since then kind of, instead of extending, the soft mental touch that she often does, has instead extended what amounts to something of a death grip, as if she's treating them like a lifeline. And yeah, she will numbly amble towards the group, probably hulking along on all fours, ears slicked back. And again, in her case, perfectly physically whole, but soggy. It's still pattering a soft rain. And certainly pained emotionally, but not physically. And as she finally gets up to the three of them, she almost, as if to reassure herself that they're real, will slink up and, much like one would expect of a domesticated pet, kind of slips between them, kind of not even bumping hard enough to really jostle, just brushing past all three to ensure they're real and they're there and they're, well, mostly whole. By the time she brushes past Aiden, brushes past Saoirse, and finally gets to the point of brushing up to Dallas, how much rage did Dallas have by the end of all this?
I think she was at like 8.
Vague idea. Jesus! After all the fighting?
Yep.
Fuck.
I think all of us were down to about 5. Like we were all
About 5,
around
4,
the same.
yeah, around the same area. All of us were about 5 or 4.
Yeah, because she spent that rage on that last turn, and we just didn't get to use it.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me set up, because I should have had the sense to do it, and didn't. And it's... I'm trying to remember shit. Something empathy.
Intelligence.
Thank you. And as she brushes up to Dallas, since she is the most grievously injured, will actually lift her head enough to kind of essentially extend a nuzzle, like the cheek brushing around hip height as she comes past. And heals 4 points of damage. She does nothing for the scars, but takes the worst edge off of it, hopefully. At least rendering her able to walk under her own power again.
Dallas, yeah, she takes a few steps, still sore and tender, but she gives Saoirse a little bit of a pat as she stands up on her own power, but puts an arm over her stomach just below where the wound is, as it still just hurts. She looks around the Urge's battlefield looking for the other face that she's hoping is still among the living.
Yep, Saoirse's also looking for him as well, praying that he made it through.
10 Point is not much help. She doesn't seem to know a particular direction to look in. She just, after healing Dallas, twists herself around and takes the whole maybe stride, maybe 2, that it takes to get back up alongside.
Meanwhile, Aiden is limping along with Zigzag carrying his friend's body.
Oh, he's about to get the same treatment, don't you worry.
Yeah, Aiden's just stumbling along, quite numb, just kind of glancing around, but nowhere near with the same fervor. So you're just quite numb.
So, with all of these indicators, now feels a good time to enter. So, in the sky, you see a rocket-propelled man, which you may have previously seen from your prior battle from a distance. Yeah, previously he'd been flying off elsewhere, but as this figure arrives, he's coming like right at you guys, and then goes vertical, and then comes down slowly until its feet touches the ground. And as soon as its feet touch the ground, the armor disappears, and it's Felix with a rather worried look on his face. And he looks and he sees that everyone's okay, and he has a moment.
And I will totally take initiative and say that as he is landing, as he's settling behind them, and as 10 Point is turned around to see the extent of the damage on Aiden's back, since there was none of it on his front, she will pull much the same move. One cheek already bloodied, this time with her other cheek kind of grazing by at hip level. And making use of her gift a second time. You said you're roughly the same age?
Yeah, I'm 5. I was on 5.
Alright. Feel free to take off 5 of that damage. As she nuzzles past and comes to settle on the other side of him, now with the blood of her packmates on each of her cheeks. Just kind of numbly taking her spot at his heel.
Oh, yeah, no, he definitely walks a bit more straight. It does nothing for the scars, obviously, but he keeps moving, stumbling idly, you know.
He has a Felix in front of him.
Yeah, he'll stop eventually, kind of half realize. Felix will see first that Aiden's just kind of still shock. His eyes are kind of raw. He looks exhausted. He'll look up. Felix?
Aiden, did Shinlo fight at your side? Have you seen him?
No. No.
Yeah, it was just me and Aiden and Dallas and our allies.
God. I just scouted around the battlefield. East, west, north, south. This was my last stop.
It's possible he may be heading back towards the Sept then.
Yes, was he with the other group?
He must have been. I know he wouldn't have sat out of something like this.
No, he's probably with the other group. He'll be fine. Yeah. We held.
Did. Everyone okay?
Dallas starts to.
Felix completely see Aiden is holding Chad, you know, who's who's obviously dead in his arms.
Dallas is she peels off the chainmail and just lets it fall. It's now ruined, and she pulls out a flannel shirt that was in her swag, and very gingerly buttons it up in the front, and then gets up to her feet. Not without casualties. Von Everix, Fangs of Fenrir, they both lost members. Chad and Dad both didn't make it.
It was meant to be an easy victory, they said. But there was a lot of them. We we yeah. There's a lot of them, Felix.
Same with us, though not as many, I imagine, between your work and the forces in the other direction's work. Because out of character, it was
They were
said
the west. We were east. They were west.
Okay. Yeah. We still had problems to deal with, not to mention the Bane itself. But
Everyone good?
for the most part, yeah. From what I've seen, we worked well together. We had William White and Skovgard to help defend the Theurges. Oh, he looks at a 10-point with a very faint smile, but still very worried eyes. We held our own.
And while the response is decidedly belated, it'll be at that moment. Perhaps as the lot of them have finally stopped moving, perhaps because she doesn't have another prompt to follow, another thing to do on autopilot. With the conversation kind of flying over her head, 10 Point has settled down into essentially a sit, a crouch of sorts, just behind one of Aiden's ankles, and she glances from face to face to face, and then very abruptly, the pack link is going to be hit by a veritable tidal wave of essentially stark fear turned to relief. And she just kind of collapses. I don't know how well a Krynos can sob, but she's doing her level best.
I imagine it's the similar sound of a large dog that doesn't like being locked in its kennel, and being left behind.
You know what? Sure. It's a horrible kind of wrenching noise, considering she doesn't have the vocal cords for something more human. But yeah, she just kind of very suddenly, especially to like Saoirse and Felix who don't have a peek inside her head, just very suddenly kind of drops and starts making this horrible, sorrowful sounding noise. But at the very least, two of them know that there's just an intensive relief there. She's finally breaking down.
Aiden will kind of weirdly turn, like put his hand on. The hand still shakes as he puts on 10 Point's head. Save it for home, 10 Point. Not here.
What's wrong? I don't.
She's happy we're alive, that's all.
If she were Hammond, I'm pretty sure it would just be ugly crying, Felix.
Pretty much.
Saoirse's gonna go over to 10 Point and hug her while she cries.
Yeah, between the touch of one pack mate, and especially Saoirse, bless her heart, hugging a Krynos. Is she in Hamid or?
Yeah, she's in Hamid.
She like comfort hugs this giant, loudly bawling Krynos.
We're still in the Umbra, so she's actually like flown up to 10 Point's torso and wrapped her arms around her.
It'll be a very slow process, but especially with the reassurance of a hug, feeling the brush against her head, being shushed, what have you. She'll slowly start kind of trying to put her shit back together. It will not be a quick process.
Dallas looks over at Felix, and she walks over and just extends out her left hand towards him. She doesn't have words really at this point, but yeah.
He'll take the few steps to meet her, and initially like goes for the handshake, the very cordial, business-like handshake. Like he leans as if that's his intention, and then it like sort of kicks in. Wait, I'm dealing with a Get a Fenris, and then extends it a bit further and grasps her forearm.
And she grasps a hold of it, and she just kind of very quietly says, I would have gone in for the hug, but this shit still hurts a lot.
Yeah. And, oh, shit. Out of character, should be worth mentioning that, yeah, he has some manner of burns, like through his jeans, through his shoes, and on his forearms as well. Not anywhere that Dallas has gripped, but that is the extent of his damage.
Well, on this side, at least, we all made it. I don't know what happened on the Western Front. All I know is that Cthulian thing is dead.
The fuck was that?
I don't know.
Never even heard of anything like that before.
It reminds me of some shit I saw on the Amazon, but nothing quite of that flavor, I suppose you could say.
For a half second, I thought it was the thing from the museum.
God. When it comes to losses, yeah, I haven't heard any howls yet. Imagine that probably won't happen until later this evening when we've tallied the dead.
We're going to need gatherings for the departed.
Well, I definitely know how to do that.
Dallas gives a kind of a smirk towards Saoirse, and then she finds a few piles of bodies of just dead wormish minions that she sets upon. She looks down at these skull pigs, which I'm guessing the Theurge just fucking slaughtered.
Oh, yeah.
And she looks over at Aiden. I could have let it happen, Aiden.
What?
I had my chance.
What? Aiden's been kind of zoned out of the conversation. He's just been staring down. We're actually staring at the bodies and still with Chad in his arms, just blankly staring. What chance? What are you on about?
Justin was there with us on the battlefield.
So?
All that hatred didn't even matter.
Yeah. Doesn't really matter anyway, does it?
Might be time to let go of a few things I've been hanging on to.
Yeah.
Maybe realize it really wasn't his fault.
He'll just nod. You can tell he just doesn't have the energy to answer. Just nods.
Saoirse,
Hi, Dallas.
did a pretty good job against that. Whatever she was.
Yeah, fucking bitch. You did a very good job leading today. I'm proud of you.
Dallas nearly turns purple. But she just kind of leans her head forward, just like taking stock of it all. And over the pack link, there's just that sort of slow unknotting of her stomach, the tension just that's built up over being responsible for that many people.
Tenpoint, meanwhile, has finally stopped making that god-awful noise, though she has shoved her muzzle entirely against, like... Saoirse is now hugging a giant head.
Yeah, I figured. Saoirse's just petting her and, you know, making soothing noises in her ear, just trying to get her to calm herself.
And what of the Felix?
Do what now?
I said, and what of the Felix?
Oh wait, hang on. What's happening? Sorry, I zoned the fuck out.
Dallas has gotten a compliment and turned purple. Aiden's still fucking done with everything. Saoirse's hugging a giant head and petting it. Tenpoint has finally stopped making horrible, like, gut-wrenching noises. There's still mild whimpers here and there as she kind of ramps down.
Felix is simply standing in the rain. His burns starting to minimize and shrink into just bald patches of what would be forearm hair. And he's just kind of looking around the battlefield at all the dead spirals and banes, and specifically looking for Thad. As was reported that he had fallen.
Yep. Probably find him in the massed line of Baines and Gru, like looks like they formed a battle line. Because that's where Tad and Chad fell during the push. Aiden himself just keeps walking. Doesn't really particularly engage with anybody. The pack, notice he's walled off.
Dallas just leaves it be for right now. Should our fronts are collected. People are collected. Those that needed collection. We should probably start heading back.
At that, Felix stops staring off, and turns around and nods. Got my fingers crossed that we'll meet Shinla there.
Dallas will stand up and she'll She'll first take her hammer and kind of use it to crack off two tusks from two skull pigs, and she'll hand one each, 1 to 10 point, one to Felix. And then she pats Felix on the shoulder. Get back to the set and check up on him. Hopefully they didn't come up against anything too nasty on that end.
Either way you cut it. I don't know if Shinlo ever talked to you guys about it, but he reaches into his shirt and pulls out a necklace of what appears to be a little like mustard seed, like encased in glass, almost like one of those whatchamacallits, bugs, scorpions, spiders, or mosquitoes that have been trapped in amber.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mustard seed in like a clear something, and he just kind of holds it out. Shinlo once told me that faith, even the size of a mustard seed, can move mountains. Look what we've done.
We overcame overwhelming odds with minimal casualties, it seems. Because we were smart, we had a plan. Though we had squabbles, we still managed to work together, which is what we need all the time, and not just in times of war. Imagine how much better things could be if we just learned to cooperate all the time. Don't necessarily have to like each other, but just when push comes to shove, know that we've got each other's backs. Well, sure.
I think we've always seen it that way, Saoirse. We can fuck
I
with
just
each
wish
other.
more people would.
I think it's true to the nation. We can fuck with each other hideously and relentlessly. Try being someone outside that circle and fucking with us and see what happens.
You're right about that.
Mm.
Remind me, is Aiden sitting or is he still just standing?
He's walking away. He's walking away for
well.
a bit now.
Yeah. Between the walling and him, like, apparently there's some invisible line that he hits, at which point 10 Point has for the most part chilled the fuck out. And is probably kind of thankfully nosing at Saoirse. And then very abruptly, like, gives her head a jerk and a swivel.
Saoirse,
And,
let's go.
And yeah, she to be fair, if she hadn't, she might have just kind of been carried along for the ride.
I mean, which is fine, because she can fly and whatever. It's okay. You know what? No, Saoirse will do that. Let's just, because that's fucking hilarious. Saoirse's gonna hang on, and 10 Point's gonna carry her off with her.
Yeah, 10 Point pops her head up, swivels it very abruptly in Aiden's direction, ears pitched forward, and particularly since she can't get anything through the link, and he's getting to the point where he's not, like, in that comforting close area. Yeah, she starts kind of, at first, like, that soft little trotting gait, but if he's gotten enough distance, she'll lope a couple strides
Oh, and she
to
starts...
make it up.
Shit.
Hmm?
Are we set up in a dice roller?
Yes. He's in the werewolf line.
All right, let me scroll down. I'm gonna roll a Dex Athletics to just like put a hand on 10 Point as she starts to trot in that direction. Which it is 4, 5,
Feel free.
10. That's an equal to 6 of 1. 4 successes. Would you like to dodge?
Oh no,
It's not-
she's not concentrating that hard. 4 successes is just making sure that you've got your hand up in time.
Yeah, no, he does something no one has ever seen, and he touches a menace. He says, 10 Point, wait.
And There might have been a twitch of a response to the hand, but especially with the sharp, well, in her mind, order accompanying it, she kind of skids. Though she shrills out a whine and keeps her eyes plastered on Haraya as he keeps walking. But she's stopping right where the hand hit her.
I think this is something that Aiden has to do on his own. You know him better. You know him just as well as I do, if not better, but that he just kind of shakes his head. That it's the one thing, one of few times, and looks at Saoirse at this point. It's one of few times that I do not envy your auspice.
I'll nod.
Did you say Dallas is doing a thing?
Dallas just she gives 10 point that gentle reassurance that, Felix is right.
She definitely feels essentially what amounts to like static in the pack link. It's not full on no fuck you, but it's just kind of a mindless, wordless, like, no, but I don't like it though.
Dallas just kind of sighs, and she'll walk up and put a hand on 10 Point's shoulder. You don't have to. Just give him his space. We'll be there to pick up the pieces after it's done.
As soon as Dallas confirms what he's saying out loud, he takes his hand off of her rather quickly and joltingly.
Yeah, there's another like kind of piteously shrill whine of protest, but she doesn't take off again once the hand jerks back. And yeah, she's pressing around the walls that Aiden has put up because she knows there's a back door here somewhere.
I mean, she presses and presses, and eventually she's just met with a sharp, almost feels like a proverbial punch through the pack link, like back off.
Yeah, for no visible reason whatsoever. Albeit it's probably fairly obvious, even to people that aren't like, in her head. Because she's staring after him, the ears are pricked forward, and she's staring and staring intensely, and then she will suddenly kind of recoil and yipe. Very sharply, very suddenly. No further reaction than that, really. Besides to, probably after that, again, just kind of sink onto her belly.
Dallas will pick up the ruined chainmail, sort of shake it out a bit, and slide it into the swag. And she takes this basically like a cloth. It looks like a bundle. She pulls it out of the swag, not wanting to keep it in there any longer, and she puts it over her shoulder, and there's the sound of rattling in it. And she sort of reaches down and grabs a hold of 10 Point's armpit to pull her back up to her feet. Stiffen that upper lip.
She gets not even the least indication of composure. Through the pack leg, 10 Point is bleeding a lot more than she normally does emotionally. It's just coming out in waves.
Yeah. Dallas just has that quiet resolve. She's in this weird Zen state almost from the just from the stress of it all. And she gives 10 points underarm meat a bit of a squeeze, digging her fingertips into it a little bit, just to try and get her back to the here and now.
It at least provokes her to respond by rising to lessen the pressure. There's a kind of sharp glance to see if there's further any sort of further reciprocation coming for her action, but well, reciprocation isn't the word. Any further consequence, but yeah, she's still pretty fucking out of it.
Yeah.
All in all, she's just kind of following the guide of hands and shoves and sharply given orders.
Yeah. Dallas will take the sack and she'll just put it out in front of 10 Point. Carry this and cleanse the contents of it when you get back to the set. That's an order.
Hey, the autopilot's a good old thing. Yeah, she'll reach out and take the sack. And perhaps finally recognize that there are other things that need to be gotten, need to be done, and start kind of casting about herself, looking at the dead and the fallen.
Felix.
Yes. Yuff.
When we get back, I don't know if you know the right or not, but those tusks would probably make very good fang daggers.
He nods. I do.
It would be a great boon for the Sept and for those that participated in this battle.
I'll certainly need 10 points assistance. I've seen what she can do with carving.
Any assistance you need from a blacksmith, let me know, and I'll do what I can.
Hmm. In the meantime, I suppose now's as good a time as any to say we should probably cleanse these and regroup on Sept.
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
And I will make note of it very briefly for the sake of making sure that it's not forgotten that there are assuredly those probably of lower rank or few attachments who are going amongst the dead collecting scalps, collecting livers, collecting all manner of ode chiminage from the fallen enemies.
Mm-hmm.
Alice will just look around at the four of them. At this point, I'm guessing they've just let Aiden go on his merry way.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, as a result, 10 Point will be hovering fairly close to Dallas's heel the same way she does to Aiden's much of the time.
Glad all of you are alive.
So am I.
I'm glad that we all haven't left anyone behind. If I didn't know any of you all were out here, I don't know if I could have done it. I don't know if any of us could have done it.
Saoirse looks to both 10 Point, Felix, and I'm very grateful for everything that you and the other theurges have done, because Dallas is right. Without that, I don't think that we would have been nearly as successful. So thank you very, very much.
Felix looks at 10 Point and nods as the last of his burns disappear as the rain trickles down his form. He says, we wouldn't have been able to do what we did if your team and the West team hadn't taken the brunt of the worm's damage. It would have been literally impossible. So thank you as well.
Well, once we cleaned our wounds and regrouped and had time to return to the other parts of our lives, Felix, I owe you a drink, I owe 10 Point a drink, and I owe Saoirse a drink, and all of you owe me a drink, and we'll just make that a night out on the town. And she gives this one sort of curl of the corner of her lip, sort of comes up. Because we took back our city.
That we did. And it is, though we did lose some people, it is worth celebrating that.
Speaking of celebrations, walks over to Saoirse and very, very brazenly, in a way that usually Felix doesn't act unless he's feeling particularly goofy, wraps an arm around Saoirse and at her side and holds her to his side and holds one arm out at the horizon majestically and says, "So, honey, I was thinking about taking our honeymoon in Manhattan. I know there's this great hotel. We could bring our friends. It'll be great."
She just starts laughing. We should totally do that.
Yeah.
Oh,
And she just squeezes Felix and lays her head on his shoulder.
while her player is very amused, 10 Point is blatantly in some state of shock and probably still hovering by Dallas's heel and just kind of shaking. But rest assured, Katie got it, and she thought it was pretty fucking funny.
And Dallas just... She'll crouch down in front of 10 Point and take the bottom side of 10 Point's muzzle into her hand. And Dallas will roll her charisma and leadership.
Oh my.
Yeah. And you know what? I can say that this is just after that battle that she still has Visage of Fenris active, but not in a way that's detrimental to 10 Point. She's not using it against 10 Point.
Yep, it was not activated in her presence, so fuck the police.
So yeah. What is it? 2 and 2 at difficulty 5. Just a willpower point on this. Two successes. As she looks 10 Point in the face. You've got a job to do, Cleith. Make your way back to the Sept. Take care of what you need. Then, and only then, will you be given leave to go tend to your other Raya. Do you understand?
And yeah, also with a couple of successes, considering the shape she's in, I'm just gonna say there's no rule against it. She don't have the willpower to throw at it, really. So she kind of steadies, her ears pitch forward, and she finally gives a slight nod, just enough to put pressure against the hand holding her jaw up. Yes, Raya.
And she'll kind of clonk her forehead against the sort of the top of her head, and she'll just whisper to 10 Point. You did a good job today, Onrai.
And she's finally there enough to respond to it, to kind of calm just a touch more. The fur kind of smooths out, the ears kind of ease. Not press back tightly, but they just kind of ease back into a more relaxed position. She'll even close her big old golden eyes for a second. Thank you, Raya.
Proud of you, Moira. And then she'll stand back up.
And with that, the shaking has faded. And as Dallas stands up and releases the big old jaw, 10 Point finally composes herself enough to properly look back at the other two, like she's really looking at them and seeing them. And offers a bob of her head that sets the little bells jingling, because they're still there. They'll never go away. And we'll obediently, after that, turn to orient on the sept, rousing up to return home as she's been told to, with the bag still clenched in her hands so that she can cleanse it upon approaching the Bond.
And once 10 Point gets out of sight, Dallas just lets out this slow groan and whine. Oh, God, Silver really fucking hurts. Oh, it sucks, Felix. Oh, God.
Well, oh well. We'll get used to it, but not really. And gives her a pat on the back. Maybe in a place that hurts. He doesn't know. He's not aiming.
She just makes this sort of noise as he pats her on the back.
Oh, gross. I thought that was rain. It's red rain. Okay. Wipes it on his jeans.
Yeah.
Ooh, red rain, me no likey.
God damn it, Felix. And she'll stand up again. And she'll look at Saoirse. Out of character, Felix is an Adrian?
Not yet, but pretty soon.
Yeah, so then she stops and looks at Saoirse. Lead us home, Raya. And gestures out in front of the two of them.
She smiles and nods and starts for home.
So while they're all chatting and congratulating and, make relieved that they're surviving, Aiden will walk over to the body of that axeman that they had. He will set Chad down very tenderly, and he will almost walk over and stare at the body and kind of kneel down in front of it and start punching it repeatedly, to the point where the face caves in, the point where the skull almost shatters open. He just keeps hitting and shouting and screaming. Various words are almost unintelligible, but the names Teresa, Fred, Joe Summers. The final name, all right, after Chad's name, is Darcy. As he will take the brain out, stuff it into the little bag of his, and almost in a complete composed calm, we'll pick up Chad and we'll head back to the Sept to deliver him to his mother.
Would anyone else like to act before the scene closes? And hearing none, I'll say thank you, players, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. This has been a fuck of a battle. Thank you, Amush, for this fantastic plotline and this insane near end to it. And with that, we'll see you next time on the Living World of Darkness, Rage Across New York.